The most dangerous place for a teenager in this country is not always the streets. Sometimes it can actually be the dining table. Surprising, right? I know some of you just exchange glances, but that's okay because I'm not talking about physical danger. I'm talking about another kind of danger. The danger of opening your mouth, choosing to be vulnerable, choosing to trust someone with something true, and being left with silence. Or even worse, being interrupted, being called too sensible, being told to calm down, and being waved away with four words. Four words that feels like a door slamming on your face. Just forget about it. I am 13 years old and I have been let into a room. Room, this stage, this microphone, a place where many people my age has never been let into. And I'm using that opportunity to say the things teenagers across the world says to themselves in hallways, classrooms, bedroom scenes at midnight. We are not being heard. And it is hurting us that nobody even realizes it. Let me take you back to an ordinary evening last year. I was packing up my school bag, ready to read, when I remembered something that happened earlier that day. Something that stayed with me, something that left a hole in my mind, something that I really wanted to know someone else's idea about it. My aunt was in the next room. We were close, so I said, why not? I walked into the room, we started a conversation, I was choosing my words, and just as I reached that point that struck me, that point that I really wanted to know her idea, just forget about it. She didn't look up. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't say, oh, give me 5 minutes. She just dismissed it. Dismissed me. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't being arrogant. I was being honest. And in return, I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. I went to the doorway and I stood there. I didn't know whether I wanted to cry. I didn't know whether I wanted to shout. I didn't even know if I wanted to stop exiting from that room that moment. I walked into my bedroom, sat on my bed, and there I had it. What I didn't have at that doorway. I felt invisible. Here's what I want you to understand from this story. My aunt wasn't a cruel person in this story. She isn't unusual. She isn't evil. She's normal. And that's my point. What happened to me that day happens every single day. In classrooms, homes, hallways, and yes, even in our offices. A teenager speaks, an adult, simply distracted or unaccustomed to treating a teenager's feelings, dismisses it. A teenager stops talking, and everyone moves on. Except that teenager doesn't fully move on. Because there is something that happens to a person when they are silenced repeatedly. Not violently silenced, not shouted at or punished for speaking, but quietly, consistently silenced. Slowly, they begin to make a calculation, an unconscious one. They begin to weigh whether they were speaking, and slowly, they begin to think it's not. Adults, parents, teachers may say, and they're not entirely wrong. Teenagers don't always have the full picture. Sometimes we dramatize, but we're still learning. We're still learning how to guard our emotions, how to choose our moments. But a child doesn't learn a language fluently without someone there to listen and hear them. You don't just look at a child and say, come back when you're ready. You have to give them the hearing that says, you are worth waiting for. Why does that change the moment a child becomes a teenager? To the adults, and I say this because this is the fear hearing, teenagers, including me, can work on the way we do our things. We can work on the way we speak, how we choose our moments, and also how we gather our emotions. Because a conversation does not require only one person showing up, it requires two people showing up. To the adults in this room, and I say this with full respect, because I know this is not easy to take in. Listening is not the same thing as agreeing. You can hear a teenager from the beginning to the end without a single interruption and still stand your ground. What changes is not your authority. What changes is the message that teenager goes back with. That teenager goes back even if the answer is no, knowing that they matter. And when they know they matter, they make better choices. To the schools, the same place can't just be a sign on the counselor's door. It has to be a tradition where the question, how are you actually doing, is asked and waited for. I am 30 years old. I have things worth saying. The girl sitting 3 rows back, the one who stopped raising her hands months ago, she also has things worth saying. So does the boy who's at the hallway, whose reply is always fine, and which is fine means something entirely different. He also has things worth saying. Now let's go back to that doorway. That doorway where I stood. I don't tell this story to blame my aunt. I don't tell this story to make her feel guilty. But I tell the story because I think if she knew how much it meant to me, she'd have listened. So I'm going to leave you with this. The next time a teenager starts to speak, not performs, not demands, but simply starts to speak, are you going to listen? Thank you.